Welcome back to Paul's Tech News. In a refreshing change for 2026, this past week was chock full of new announcements and further details largely focused on video games, with some particular attention given to PC hardware and PC games thanks to GDC, the Game Developers Conference happening all week in San Francisco, California. There were, of course, plenty of attempts to shoehorn in more talk about AI and cloud-based gaming services, mostly perpetrated by Nvidia, of course, but on the whole, it seemed that game developers are feeling the same way about the forced inclusion of AI as gamers are. Being sick of it and ready to at least temporarily focus on the cool stuff going on in game development without the lingering taint of AI. There was even some hopeful news, brace yourselves for this one, from Intel about a CPU refresh launch, specifically the Arrow Lake refresh, which just feels weird to even say out loud, but this is 2026 and embracing change is now a base level requirement. And while you're at it, you might as well also embrace this week's episode of Tech News.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by Thermaltake's View 600 TG full tower chassis, featuring 4 tempered glass panels that provide an unobstructed view of your PC and support for massive 420mm radiators for AIO or custom cooling. Available in 5 distinct and unique colorways, including Future Dusk, the View 600 TG also supports hidden connector and eATX motherboards and includes an anti-sag GPU bracket and rotatable PCIe slots, as well as easily removable ventilation panels and plenty of room for cable management and added storage. There's an optional 6-inch LCD add-on too. For more on the View 600 TG from Thermaltake, click the sponsor link in the video description. Okay, let's start with the hardwareiest of the tech news. Actual new desktop CPUs announced Wednesday by Intel. This is the Core Ultra 200S Plus Arrow Lake refresh, as expected, and they're keeping it simple with just 2 SKUs, the 18-core Ultra 5 250K Plus and the 24-core Ultra 7 270K Plus. And let me just say that my outlook on this refresh, expected to be the last go-round for the current LGA 1851 platform, has changed due to some ostensibly good decisions Intel has made. I don't seem to be alone either if the comments on Intel's announcement video are any indication. Intel Client Computing Group VP Robert Hollock seems to have successfully read the room and delivered a presentation that focused on performance advances in gaming, eschewed industry AI buzzwords, and did away with the soulless corporate vibes Intel is often infamous for. But here's why I'm now more interested in Arrow Lake Plus instead of just waiting for Nova Lake. And let's start with that Plus, actually. It's an easy joke to compare these 200S Plus CPUs to Intel's overly long run of 14nm CPUs in the 2010s, which made for plenty of 14nm plus memes, while allowing AMD to overtake them with regular advances to their Ryzen lineup. But Intel said they called it 200S Plus to show that it is a 200 series refresh and not new architecture, and for that forthright honesty, I am thankful. Refreshes are often underwhelming though, and lacking new architecture. We've historically seen rebadged CPUs with negligible performance increases that just boil down to clock speed bumps, but the 270K Plus and 250K Plus also increase core counts, with each getting 4 more E-cores, while also coming in at lower MSRPs. The 270K Plus will be $300, $100 less than the launch price of its predecessor, the 265K, although it's a lot closer if you look at current market prices, and the 250K Plus will be $200, whereas the previous 245K debuted for over $300. DDR5 memory support also increases from 6400 MHz to 7200 MHz, and Intel is claiming further performance boosts for gaming via their binary optimization tool, or IBOT, which boosts IPC via means that still aren't completely clear, but will likely receive further elucidation as we get closer to March 26th, when the new CPUs go up for sale. Per Intel's benchmark data, so do take it with a bit of a grain of salt, some games get huge boosts from IBOT, 20% for Borderlands 3, 24% for Far Cry 6, and a pretty crazy 39% for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, for example. Overall, Intel says the 270K Plus is 15% faster for CPU-limited gaming versus the 265K, and the 250K is 13% ahead of the 245K. Even Intel's explanation for not refreshing the high-end Ultra 9 9 CPUs makes some sense, as they say they wanted to do more for the mid-range market where most PC gamers find affordability, and indeed they're hitting AMD in a soft spot, as Ryzen CPUs tend to leave a gap between the entry-level 6 cores that cost around $200 and the premium tier X3D CPUs that start closer to $400. Now we just need to hope that the hardware shortage doesn't extend to CPUs anytime soon, though that's not assured. But assuming all Intel's claims hold up, would you overlook building on the dead-end LGA 1851 platform for a $200 18-core or a $300 24-core processor? Let me know in the comments. Next up, let's cover GDC stuff from this week, starting with Nvidia, and as a visual aid, allow me to make a balloon animal real quick. I know dog's pretty simple, I can make fancier stuff, but I'm trying to respect your time. Balloon twisting, though, apart from being one of the highest art forms known to man, involves taking a relatively small amount of latex rubber and filling it with air to give the illusion that there is more substance than actually exists. And ever since Nvidia's last actual consumer hardware launch 8+ months ago, the RTX 5050, this is the impression I've gotten when their GeForce team attempts to hype up the cool new stuff that they've got in store for gamers. So for GDC, I'm going to dispense with the hot air part and just focus on what remains. And there are games, of course, and I in no way mean to disparage the developers working on the titles they showcased, such as Samson and Star Wars Galactic Racer, and even the Quake 3 Arena RTX mod. This is the Game Developers Conference after all, so I appreciate that Nvidia is working with these game studios to leverage Nvidia hardware. Game demos aside though, the direct from Nvidia info was quite lean. The DLSS 4.5 features they announced at CES in January are finally going live March 31st, including the improved second-gen transformer model for DLSS super resolution and frame generation updates that allow up to 6x frame gen, though I am more interested in dynamic frame generation that adjusts frame gen based on your GPU's output. And yes, I said I am interested in that. I do not hate frame gen inherently, I just think it's dumb and misleading to compare it to raw rasterization or ignore impacts to latency, especially for multiplayer FPS type games. There was also an interesting bit on RTX Mega Geometry, which allows path tracing even with highly complex scenes such as forests with lots of trees, though I strongly suspect that YouTube compression was severely reducing the impressiveness of the demo scenes that they showed. And that pretty much covers it, apart from some GeForce Now stuff that I don't even want to talk about. No mentions of other software upgrades that fans have been on the lookout for, like Reflex 2, which was announced at CES 2025, or ray reconstruction for DLSS 4.5, or especially nothing even close to resembling a hint at new GPUs like the seemingly abandoned 50 Supers or the RTX 60 series. Of course, there's always Nvidia's own GTC conference that is this coming week, where we could hear more on those things, but I wouldn't get my hopes up. Other companies besides Nvidia were at GDC too though, so let's cover them. Thankfully, something that was notably missing from GDC was blockchain-based games or talks, as noted by PC Gamer, which represents a small silver lining in the more recent era of AI. Most of the crypto hype has washed away, and it shan't be missed. Microsoft was busy teasing their next-gen Project Helix Xbox console, which is inherently good news given rumors that they were going to possibly sunset their gaming efforts entirely. But apart from that broader view of PC hardware, they also announced Xbox mode for Windows 11, seemingly a further step towards their "This is an Xbox" campaign where any computer-type device can be an Xbox, though they've also scrubbed that messaging from their website, so who knows for sure. In April though, in select markets, it seems a Windows update will enable a new full-screen controller-optimized gaming interface for PCs that delivers a familiar Xbox-style experience on top of Windows 11 rather than replacing Windows itself. Also, an update for the Project Helix timeline, the new console isn't expected to hit alpha stage until early 2027, likely indicating a late 2027 or early 2028 launch, but will be made with a custom AMD chip with an order of magnitude increase in ray tracing performance up to and including path tracing. Cool. Speaking of AMD, they were also involved with GDC, though mostly through Microsoft, but the secret sauce being brewed for Xbox Project Helix is apparently called FSR Diamond, per AMD SVP and GM Jack Huhn, who posted these somewhat vague bullet points about the tech after Microsoft's presentation concluded. Apart from overusing the term next gen to describe FSR Diamond, it seems AMD will be following in Nvidia's footsteps once again by going from single frame gen to multi-frame gen when it presumably debuts in 2027, and at least he said the upscaling etc. will be machine learning powered rather than AI powered, which makes it feel slightly less dirty. How much FSR Diamond will improve over existing FSR Redstone, and whether the Minecraft naming references will hold, are big questions, as is perhaps the biggest given AMD's recent failures to support their slightly older Radeon GPUs with software updates. Will FSR Diamond only work with RDNA 5 devices like Project Helix and the Radeon 10000 series GPUs that we still naively expect to launch someday? Or will AMD see fit to trickle that down to any of the 2 or 3 dozen Radeon gamers presently in the wild? Well, much like a potential Nvidia GeForce GPU announcement at GTC next week, I wouldn't get my hopes up. And now it's time to fill in the corners with tech briefs. Late last week, a Valve community post seemed to confirm what many had already feared. The much anticipated Steam Machine, as well as the Steam Frame and Steam Controller announced alongside it back in November, would be pushed to next year due to ongoing hardware shortages. That has now been retconned though. Initially the post said they hope to ship in 2026, which, let's be honest, doesn't sound very hopeful. But after media outlets began publishing Steam Machine delayed to 2027 articles, Valve changed the verbiage to say, "We will be shipping all 3 products this year." That's a lot more confident, but it still confirms a delay. The Steam Machine was first planned for a Q1 2026 launch. More recently, that was amended to the first half of this year, and now it seems a further pushback of up to 6 months has been tacked on. And we still have no idea what the retail price will be. But there was a small amount of added info shared at GDC this week. The Steam Machine Verified program will apply to Steam games that are verified to work on the Steam Machine, which is pretty straightforward, and will automatically include games already verified for the Steam Deck. Baseline performance of 30 FPS at 1080p resolution is required, and per Valve, the Steam Machine is 6 times more powerful than the Deck. Many seem to have temporarily suspended their expectations for the Steam Machine given RAM and SSD shortages, but Valve could still make a lot of people happy by at least releasing the new Steam controller in the meantime. Another indication of the very strange time we're living through for PC hardware is Apple's sudden appeal as a value proposition, and that was boosted much by the launch of the $600 MacBook Neo this week. In a world where even a basic RAM kit can cost well over $300, a full laptop PC for $600 with a good screen, keyboard, and trackpad has a lot of appeal, and reviews for it have been glowing despite only shipping with 8 gigs of RAM. It's certainly not perfect, but the response has been quite positive, and even if you're not in the market for one, consider that it has already garnered a response from the likes of Asus CFO Nick Wu, who called it a shock to the entire market and indicated that Microsoft, Intel, and AMD might have some form of response in the works. And wouldn't that be a refreshing return to normalcy if market competition drove prices down for consumers? Does that still happen sometimes? Rounding things out today, I have a couple items to bring to your attention. This coming week, we'll kick off with Nvidia's GTC event, the GPU Technology Conference, which will probably be a whole lot of AI fluffing and announcements that will only excite those who are heavily invested in data centers and stuff, while frustrating everyone else. But who knows, maybe they'll spend a minute or two to recognize PC gamers for funding their business for a couple decades, before continuing to auto-fillet themselves, as is their wont. More appealing, perhaps, is the coming of spring, a joyous time made even more joyful by the Steam Spring Sale, which kicks off Thursday the 19th. And in these times of shortage and limited access to PC upgrades, remember that there are a ridiculous amount of PC games on Steam that often cost $5 or less, especially during seasonal sales. So seek ye entertainment and happiness, or at the very least distraction, with a retro title or 2 or 5 that even the most outdated rig can run with ease. But there you have it, guys. Tech news for the week, and if you liked it, click that like button or leave me a comment down below. While you're down there, all of the articles I talked about today are linked in the video's description if you're interested, and you can check out my store at paulshardware.net for high-quality merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, beer sets, and more. Subscribing to my channel is always a good call too. Thanks again, everyone. We'll see you next week.